Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Ideas Times 2, and today I have a tutorial kind of craft with me, and I'm working with puzzle pieces, so fun with puzzle pieces today. My daughter was getting rid of a puzzle, and I said, hey, I'll take a handful of those pieces, so I did. She said they had like 5 pieces missing, and it's no fun to keep doing a puzzle with 5 pieces missing, so they were just gonna recycle it. But they did in a way, because I'm recycling them here, repurposing them. So I prepared them in a special way I'll show you in a minute, and used them for snippets. Basically, this one is a collage, and I put it on. It's like a card key pocket or a credit card pocket. So I just put a little collage on there on the front using a puzzle piece in there. And made a couple snippets. So here are those. This one is done on corrugated, and the puzzle piece in the middle, I made it thinner, which I'll show you how to do that, because the corrugated was pretty thick, so I didn't want the puzzle piece to be an additional 1/8 of an inch or whatever the thickness is, and so I tore the puzzle piece apart on that one. And then this one has got things on the back of the puzzle piece and things on top of the puzzle piece. So I just incorporated those into snippets. This one I actually used Tim Holtz tiny attacher. I don't know if you can see the staple there, but it's really for looks because it didn't staple all the way through, but it handled it very well. It's a very strong, even though it's a tiny attacher, it is very strong. So I was kind of impressed with that. The other thing I made were some dangles, and so this one is on a jump ring, this one has a garment pin, and I just punched a hole with my crocodile, and I think I could have done it. I have an 1/8 of an inch hole puncher. I think I could have done it with that too, but it would have been difficult. But of course with the crocodile it punches through very easily. I don't have any eyelets that have a deep shaft, so I don't think I could have used an eyelet in there, but to make them thinner, which, as I mentioned before, I'll show you, you could make these a little thinner and maybe your eyelet would fit. So, but since they're a heavy paper board, I didn't think an eyelet was necessary, but I think it would be really cute. So that's a little bit about that. But so here's one little charm. And this charm, I put a hole on the bottom too, and then attached a bead dangle off of that. So get out your tiny, tiny little images and words, and let's get started. So these puzzle pieces these are the ones that I worked on already. And so I made them, well, I'll show you how they started. So they started out like this. They were pretty much just real bright colors. Whoops, I've already worked on that one too. I'll put that one over there. They were bright colors, just sort of paint splashy type of an image with a giant cat in the middle. So we had these types of colors with some of the cooler colors as well. So that's what I had to work with. And this was my experiment with hole punching, just to make sure it was going to work, and it worked just fine. So what I did was, you can, I embossed, I used Tim Holtz embossing glaze. So the only one I don't have very many embossing powders that are opaque, but I do have some, and so I experimented on this. This is an opaque embossing powder. I think I have a Stampin' Up! One in copper, and then I tinged it with a gold. So these are the basic ones I have. I have the metallics in opaque colors, and so it works with opaque colors as well. So let me show you that. The rest of these are all done with the glaze. And what the distress glaze is see-through, right? So I stamped numbers on here. I didn't change the image at all underneath, but I did stamp just to experiment, and you can see the numbers through the glaze. So the glazes are transparent, so that makes them unique from a lot of the other products that were out there at the time they first came out with those. So, and I used sort of it changed the colors on the puzzle piece because I used a colored one. I used this speckled egg color. So that's why it looks like that. So you can stamp on there and glaze over the top, and your stamp will show through. A couple more examples of that. I stamped numbers on that one again, and so the numbers show through on that. And I don't know if you can see, I have a little bunny image on there, and you can see through that. So that's what the glazes do. I have picked these up, 2 different sets. So these cool colors came in a set, and when Tim Holtz goes on sale, every once in a while I'll just pick up something that I don't know if I'm going to use, or I'm not using it right then on a project, but I figure I will use them. And then these were the other colors, the warm colors that I bought. So anyway, I decided to use those for this project. Plus that's about all I have. I do have, like I said, I do have some of the metallics. For when I was making cards, I used those quite a bit. So anyway, so that's what I used for the glazes, but either opaque ones or the distressed glazes will work. Either way, depends on the look that you want. So now I wanted to explain before we start about the thickness of the puzzle piece. If you are putting a snippet on a page and it may be just too thick if you use a puzzle piece. So a good way to still use a puzzle piece, the look of it, is to just peel it apart. So you probably all know, you've worked with puzzles before, and if you've used them a lot, they start fraying a little bit. And so that's kind of what you're going to do, is just pull the layers of the paperboard apart to make your puzzle piece come apart. Try to peel off the layer gently, like try not to rip off the pokey parts, right? Let's see if I can do this. And I am taking off quite a bit. There we go. So what you have left then is you have the top part of the puzzle piece, and then it's just paperboard on the back. And then this one is paperboard on the top and the backing on the back. So I've actually used both pieces. So let me show you that real quick. So these darker colors are when I used just the paperboard, and then these they're shinier too, so these shinier ones I used the puzzle piece face. So it's a slightly different look. You can kind of see that. And I think I do prefer the ones where I use just the paperboard, but I think these are, these are fun too. This one would normally look like this, but I changed it up a little bit. But you can still see the pattern of those star type of etchings. You can still see those through. So that's kind of, I think, kind of a summary. This one, and you can glaze and emboss layer upon layer too if you want. So like this one, I glazed it with a clear. I have a clear as well. So I glazed it with clear, and then I stamped over the top, and then I glazed it with black. Can you see that? So the music on there, I have a music stamp, and I stamped it and then glazed over that with black, and so I've got the music is sort of embossed on there. I thought that was kind of fun too. So what do we use? I explained about the powders, right? The embossing powders. And then what do we use? Like I used an archival ink to stamp the numbers, just because I wasn't sure how the ink, if the ink would, smudge or not. So I did use that. But I also used Distress Oxide inks to sort of get rid of the color and smudge it and make it look a little bit more muted. I used Distress Oxide inks, and these take a moment to dry, right? So these will work for the embossing powder itself. You can use Versamark, which is typically what we use to emboss, right? Is the watermark stamping. There are other brands, I'm sure, but so I have Versamark, and it's just a sticky ink is all it is. Just a sticky ink, and so that's what we normally use for embossing. But you can also use anything wet, something that takes a longer time to dry. You can put embossing powder on just about anything as long as it's like even glue. Now it's not going to be maybe as smooth, or it'll have a different effect. But you can also use Distress Oxide ink, so because it stays wet for a moment or two. If you've maybe noticed that if you stamp and then you run your fist accidentally across the page, it'll smudge because it's not dry yet. So you can use this with embossing powder too. So it has to be something that the embossing powder will stick to, and normally we would use Versamark or something similar, but today I use the Distress Oxide, and so different things will work for embossing. You don't necessarily have to have the special embossing ink, but it is wonderful. No denying that. All right, so now I'm going to show you how I muted these up a little bit and made them look like that. These are pretty much self-explanatory. You just, oh, maybe I'll do one of each. I'll do one of each. Okay, so here's just the paper board, okay, and then we'll do this. Well, I already punched a hole in that one. Let's just use this one. I'll show you how I do each one. So let's show you the paperboard one first. All right, so the other thing you'll need is a heat tool. So I have a heat tool way back in the day when I was doing Stampin' Up, making cards. I wasn't a demonstrator, but I was making cards. My sister was a demonstrator, and so I had, I purchased this years and years and years and years ago. These are pretty readily available at craft stores. I don't think a hairdryer gets hot enough to actually emboss, so that is something that you might need for this technique anyway. Okay, so the first thing to do is to choose my colors. So I like to pour out my powders in a coffee filter. So I might use a couple different colors. Since let's see, I've done both, the warm and the cool. I think I'll do another one like this because it looks sort of rusty, doesn't it? And I like that. The fact is, I think one of these is called Rusty Hinge. Let's see, this is, can't read it. Seriously, can't read it. Fired Brick. And then this one is Rusty Hinge. So I think I might use Rusty Hinge, and then the lightest one, which is called Tattered Rose. Okay, so I'm going to use those for this puzzle piece. So I'm going to do the paperboard one first. So, and then I'll mute it so you don't have to listen to that heat gun. So you do have to do it kind of quickly when you're doing it with paperboard, because it absorbs the inks real very quickly. Obviously, it's a thirsty paperboard, right? And you can kind of see that on here where some parts are shiny and some aren't. That's because the embossing ink was drying fairly quickly, but I like that. I like it. It looks a little distressed that way, so. All right, so that's why I'm going to get ready ahead of time here, because we don't want that to dry quickly. You can see it on this one too. This was a paperboard one as well. So the stamping doesn't show up as much because the color is darker that you start out with, but I'll show you how to do that later. Okay, so let me get my other coffee filter out. because I'm doing 2 colors. Okay, so take your puzzle piece, ink it up. So I'm just going to put it on the ink pad like this. I mean, you can, you know, pounce it the other way as well. Okay, very carefully hold it. I'm just going to do sort of half and half. Tap off the excess there and flip it around. You can mix colors too. And like I said earlier too, you can emboss over it. If you don't like the color and you want to mute it down, you can emboss right over the top. With these glazes, you'll still be able to see through it. So there you go. I've got the 2 colors on. Okay, and now it's time to heat emboss it. This is a silicone mat, so what I do generally is I'll just lay it right on the mat, because if you have one of those nice cutting mats, it's gonna warp because of the heat. So I just pulled this from my kitchen, and oops, that's down a little far. I pulled this from my kitchen and I knew it could take the heat, so I do have a Tim Holtz glass mat under this, and I'm pretty sure it would be fine, but I wasn't too sure, so wasn't 100%. So what I usually do is hold it with a pin or some sort of needle. Fact is, I have a needle here that I was using. That pin looks a little small. I don't want to burn my fingers. So I have a long needle, and I'm just gonna hold it down and then start this up, and then all you do is just, let me move that out of the way a little bit. All you do is just move it around until it's smooth and shiny. So all right, and so there we have the finished product. Because of the paperboard, you can see they didn't, and it's transparent, so you can see it just comes out a little muted like that. So gorgeous, love it. All right, so now how do I get ready these shiny ones? This is the one I ripped off, if you remember. So what I usually do with these, and I'm pretty sure you would not have to do this step, but in fact, as I did it on a couple of them, did not do it on a couple of them. For example, if you had maybe green leaves or something, maybe you like that and you just want to cover it with one of the green glazes or something like that. Or if you're using an opaque, embossing powder, you're probably not going to see any of that. But since I'm using glaze, this is going to be seen. And so I rough it up to, not really to help the glaze stick, because it'll stick no matter what. I experimented with that. It'll stick no matter what, but I'm just trying to get rid of some of the color is all I'm doing. So this is just an emery board. Just a piece of sanding paper. Whatever you want to use. Leave some of the colors that you like. You definitely don't have to, sand it completely away. Definitely not, but... And then I am going to use a wipe and clean that up just a little bit. Okay. So there we have that all ready to go. Then what I do is put some ink on it. Whatever colors that you are choosing is fine. I'm going to do some gathered twigs. It's not super dark brown. And just cover it up like that. Now, if you didn't sand it, you can still use the ink, but it's not going to be permanent on there unless you glaze over the top. For example, you couldn't just put ink on this shiny surface and not expect it to rub off, because it will rub off. If you used something like archival ink, it probably wouldn't rub off. So that's just if you're not using embossing powders, then you would need to worry about the stay. What's the right word? You'd have to worry about the the, the color fastness or the color or the ink staying onto the item. But since this is getting covered with glaze, I could use really any ink I wanted to. Okay, so there we have that. It's kind of cool looking already, I think. And you could use it like that. You definitely could use it like that. All right, but I think I'm gonna take it one step further, and we're gonna glaze this. So I am going to use my Versamark, and I've been just doing the same, just pouncing it on there, just like I did the other one. I better decide what color though, real quick like a bunny. So I've got the brownish kind of helping me with the color. All right, so I think I'm gonna do this other one, fired brick. Okay, we'll get all situated. It's shiny, you see that? So that's wet and sticky, and that helps the, I think I will use two colors again. Oops, almost did the wrong coffee filter. All I was doing was reaching for my coffee filter there. Okay, so let's put these away, and I will heat emboss that. Heat that up. I have a little fuzzy there or something. Get that off of there. And once again, we'll hold it down. And even if you don't cover it all, if you missed a spot, I don't think that's bad either. I think it all looks good. Okay, so that is the final result of that. Loving that. Love it, love it. So you can, if you're wanting to stamp, numbers or script or something on there, you would stamp that before you put the glaze on, or you can do it right now. You could, with probably an archival ink, nice and crisp ink, you could stamp on here, put another glaze over the top, and it would be all set. I don't know if the archival ink would, it probably would not smudge. It's supposed to be a permanent ink, right? So, but you might have to experiment with that if that's what you want to do. But for my experiments, I did stamp before the glaze went on. So I guess that's it. And then just make a little cluster. So I was planning on making one, so why don't I just do that real quick, because I did grab some items already to put on here. So very simple. If I'm putting a button on or something, I use like an E6000 or a Gorilla Glue type thing, but other than that, I just used my Fabri-Tac. If there's a real tiny item, sometimes I just use a thinner liquid ink like this. This one is actually, the brand is AdTech. And that reminds me, I have a glue review coming up. So I'm just waiting to receive one more glue in the mail. So once that happens, I'll be putting up a video to sort of give sort of a analysis of some different glues, especially ones I've been seeing around people using, and always kind of wondered, do these work better? How do they compare? And that kind of thing. So really hoping to find out some stuff about those glues, because that's a big part of what we do, right? So I did grab some things, and I don't know exactly how I'm going to put this together, but so I don't know if you can see that. It's a very tiny little bird, so I was super excited to see that bird. I think that'll be cute. What else did I find here? I did have some little words. I save these words even when they're on, like, say, a branding strip on a digital, right? So this is Tracy Fox, and it says plain and simple labels. So you could use these nouns here, plain, simple labels. I think, and they're so tiny, right? I think I think I've used those on numerous occasions. And these are some words I clipped off of something. I'm not real sure which one, but so they're spread your wings and fly like the wind. So I figured those, maybe I'll use the word fly on here. 3-letter word, tiny. Ink that just a tiny bit. If I ink it too much, you won't be able to read it. Okay, so I might use this. Okay, so I think I'm going to use Fabri-Tac at the bottom. That one's kind of, I do have a newer one right next to me here, so I think I'll use this one. Just going to glue the fabric on. And then glue this little music on. It's just the beginning of the staff. I thought that was really cute. Okay, I'm going to bring it down a little bit just in case I put the word fly up there, I'm thinking. Okay, and then this more liquidy type glue. Fabri-Tac has got more of a texture to it. All right. My granddaughter is really into birds, so it's a lot of fun to see her grab that interest and run with it. So I think that looks pretty good. And then I think I will put the word fly up there. This one I didn't use as much. The other ones were very tatty, right? This one's not quite so much. There we go. So just a little snippet, and it's not as thick because I had ripped off the bottom part of that. All right, so that's it for today. This is fun with, super fun. I had lots of fun doing these, and I've got some ready to go for other projects. And they're not in view. How's that? We'll put this a little closer for you. There we go. That's it for today. So take care, and we will catch you in the next video. Bye.